to Growth Cultivated, a Blue Bonsai group podcast. I'm your host, Michelle Cassini. Today, I'm excited to welcome Garrett Ewers, CEO of Rejuv Medical. Garrett is the co-founder of Rejuv Medical, an independent integrated healthcare practice focused on helping patients address chronic conditions through a comprehensive root cause approach. Welcome to the show, Garrett.
Thanks for having me.
Of course. We're happy to have you. Why don't you go ahead and tell the audience a little bit more about Rejuv Medical, the patients you serve, and your role there?
Sure. I came on to Rejuv Medical a little bit over 13 years ago. I actually came on just to kind of run their fitness department. But what intrigued me about coming to Rejuv Medical, because I was on the verge of starting my own company at that time when this opportunity came across, because I love dealing with athletes. I was an athlete myself for many, many years, a D1 athlete trying to make the Olympics and stuff like that. But
what sport?
Diving.
Oh, very cool.
I was a springboard diver.
Nice. And how high did you go? I'm sorry, I get sidetracked, but I love watching that stuff. How high up were you?
So I did 10-meter platform for a little while. So that was going to be 33 feet, but mainly 3-meter and 1-meter springboard.
Wow. Impressive. Okay. Continue on.
Sure. Well, I was in the process of opening up my own business that focused on teaching athletics, but focusing on using athletics to teach leadership and better lifestyle and all of those types of things. But when this opportunity came across, what I loved about it is it got to my ethos. I hated pills. I don't know why. I just always hated pills. So if it was for like a medical reason, stuff like that, I think the last Tylenol I took was probably when I was like 9 or 10 years old when my mom made me have it.
Really?
So, yeah. And when I met this opportunity, I met with the head at that point, and he was explaining this model. The whole thing is about getting people back to their true health, using physical fitness to get them going, and then introducing non-surgical orthopedics and functional medicine, and with the true goal of preventing unneeded surgeries and getting people off medication. I'm like, all right, that jives with everything that I've trying to do. So when I came on, like I said, as their fitness director, and I started to learn more and more about this company. And they were actually on the leading edge of bringing regenerative medicine, which is like stem cells and PRP, to the masses. And we're doing it in a small community in central Minnesota. The town is about 40,000, but the about 20-mile radius is about 250,000. Medium income of about 50,000. So it's not a thriving community, but it's a community nonetheless. And what I really liked after hearing what this company did is what they were actually trying to do on the larger scale. They were just about to open up a new facility that was way too big for what they were going to do, but it was going to be impressive. And when I started to get into the job, I started to learn how passionate these people were about actually taking control over their health. And that is something I can really get my teeth into and help people with. So I started helping people get onto the fitness program. And then after that, I started teaching them about what we do on the medical side. And we took something that was really more focused on the fitness side. And within about 2 years, we flipped the script to where it's more on the medical side, but using fitness as an ancillary service to that.
Mm.
And at that point, I was going through a lot of fluctuations within the company, and the company itself was going through a lot of struggles. And I remember going and meeting a lot of my college friends down in Minneapolis, St. Paul, about 60 miles away. And they're all working for like Accenture and Best Buy and all this stuff. And they're like, hey, why don't you just quit what you're doing down there and come up and work with us? We'll get you a great job, great pay and all that. And just like, guys, I appreciate it. And actually, it sounds awesome. But let me tell you a little bit what I deal with on a daily basis and the people I'm going through. And I told them stories about people that came to us after they had 3 miscarriages. And once we got them involved in athletic or the exercise regimen, the functional medicine, they were able to go out and have a healthy set of twins. I had another lady that was scheduled for eye surgery and was coming in to get prepped for eye surgery by just getting a little bit better shape, clean up her diet. And she went to her pre-surgical consultation and just to make sure she's fully ready. And her doctor's like, I don't know what you're doing, but you don't need eye surgery anymore. And It was just story after story after story. And then when I told them this, they're like, yeah, never mind. You're actually doing something pretty cool. So probably stay there. And
so go ahead.
that just illustrates the type of impact that somebody can have with the company that they're working for when they have a true mission. And at Rejuv Medical, that's what we do. And we've kept on adding on different ancillary services just so we can help people in different aspects and keep on the cutting edge without going into the woo-woo medicine type of things.
Got it. And obviously, it sounds like just from the few stories that you shared that you're really transforming people's lives. And I find it hard to believe that it would just be contained in, the small like populace of your city surrounding in Minnesota. How far is your reach of patients? And do you have people that you're working with either remotely or that fly in to see your staff?
Yeah. So when I started getting into more of the medical side, I started doing like sales and consultations. And one of the first gentlemen I talked to was from Germany. And then he was flying in. And we do have a worldwide presence at this location. Majority, I would say 95%, probably with a 4-hour radius or about 200 miles. But we definitely have people flying in probably weekly from all parts of the country and sometimes parts of the world just to do the services that we do. And we've got a side company that actually teaches what we do to clinics, and we've taught it to over 115 clinics, again, in other parts of the world. But I would say probably 90 of those are probably US based.
Wow. So then, and you've done this all independently and built this independently, from without the reins of a hospital or another medical practice that is, connected to you. It's in no partnership. You are standing completely independent of anything, correct?
Correct. The doctor who started this originally, Dr. Baumgartner, he actually left working at a hospital because it was closing down and moving. They wanted him to go with, but his nurse at the time said, this is not what you're meant for. And he ended up opening up his own clinic, started with a small 1,200 square foot clinic by himself, and kind of ramped it up from there. But definitely it was looked down upon by most of the medical community right away because regenerative medicine was so new. But now we're at the point to where all the hospitals send their people to us to learn how to do regenerative medicine.
Full circle. I love that.
Yeah.
That's got to be pretty fulfilling to have it come back and now have those hospitals be really sending patients to you guys. So there's got to be a lot of though challenges with being independent, including your funding and just your overhead and putting systems together, processes, marketing, all of it. But I'm sure there's probably advantages too that you don't have to deal with. You get to make decisions much quicker, really focus on your mission and staying true to that. Can you talk a little bit about some of the advantages and disadvantages of the independent model that you are working with?
Yeah, I will say the advantages are definitely, yes, we get to do what we want to do. Sometimes it takes a while to get there. So being as an independent, you can really explore what you want to do, listen to the patients and see how they're reacting to what we're doing. And our model can change at any given point. When being connected to a hospital, one, you're constrained with what you can do because they have a certain image to maintain. They have a certain quota to maintain and stuff like that. So you're really going to have to fall under their umbrella for protection, but with that protection becomes a lot of restrictions. But for us, being independent, yes, we get to do what we want to, but that also means we might do what we want to and it leads to a bad result. Not patient care, but more financial. We might take risks that people that are more connected to the hospital system can't take, and that comes with a reward, or that those risks could also go bad for us. So when you mention finances, yeah, being under the umbrella of a hospital might come with those certain advantages of, hey, we need to get some new equipment, we need to reemploy some people, those types of things. When you're independent, you're really limited to what you can produce and the stories that you can tell.
So then you probably have gone through a lot of lessons along the way in terms of, what worked and what didn't work. As you reflect back, are there certain strategic approaches or tools or things that you have come accustomed to that are just foundational in your practice and running an independent practice that you can't live without? And potentially, how did you learn those lessons?
We learn the lessons by falling on our faces a lot. I can tell you right now that the number one thing is having a core group of employees that truly believe in the mission that you're trying to go through and believe in as a company. But to get there, the company has to be able to take care of them. And I can tell you at times, I know that most of our employees should have left. Even in the past year, we've went through financial struggles to where most employees should have left if they looked at all the signs on the wall and they knew where we were, but they voiced back to us, hey, just let us know what it truly looks like. And if we can handle it, we'll stay. If we can't, we'll move on. And I've been really impressed with our ability to retain those employees that believe in the business. And that allows us to go through very hard times. And as long as the communication is there, they're all going to move in the same direction. When you don't communicate with them and they're not sure where, that's when everybody starts to go in different directions, whether they leave the company or try to make changes in the company themselves. That's really has been probably the most crucial learning lesson for us, is really just believing and communicating with our employees and listening to them to make sure that they believe in what we're doing. Beyond that, it is making sure that you have the right KPIs and tracking methods, but also listening to each other as you go through that. I have a lot of people that will say, hey, just look at the numbers. And that's great if you can look at the numbers, but you actually understand the numbers. Mm-hmm. That's the root cause. And that's what myself as CEO right now, my job is to explain the story behind the numbers so people can understand what the KPIs actually mean. It's really easy to say, hey, we're losing on this, or this is higher profit margin. But when you look at a single service or a single appointment, that doesn't tell the whole story. You have to understand if loss leaders are there. You have to understand if the profitable margins are only made because you're taking a little bit risk or you're losing on ways to get there, as well as getting their side of the story. What do they see out of it so I can get a more complete story? That's why I sit down with a lot of my different employees, not just the ones that report to me, but actually sitting down and having discussions with everybody from who's ever wiping the windows to who's ever writing the checks. You have to be able to listen to all the stories to get the best information possible.
Well, and if you don't communicate too, that's when employees start making up their own stories, right? And those stories are very, far-fetched and not true. And I think that when you are transparent with people and you're just open and honest and you really genuinely want to hear their feedback about what would make things better or what they're hearing from patients, that respect just, really starts going through the roof. And that's how you build that loyalty, of your employees, because that makes them feel good. It makes them feel heard. And they can really start seeing some of those changes coming into effect. So you touched on the numbers a little bit, and I'd like to talk with you about that and just kind of understand what in your position are some of the KPIs that you're looking at, as well as, what are the systems that you're using to really, optimize and calculate some of those KPIs so that you can see the full story.
Mm-hmm. So sure. One of the things I call, and this is very, very looking from a 10,000 foot view, is the holy trinity of numbers. And that is cost per lead, cost per acquisition, and lifetime value of a customer or patient. Those three I can run any business off of, but it's very easy to just say those are three numbers, because there's a lot that goes into building those three numbers. And even when we talk about lifetime average or lifetime value of a customer or patient, okay, is that a 1 month, 6 month, 12 month? And then what falls into the cost of delivering that service to that? So going off of averages is great, but actually getting down to the granular aspects in each department build into building that number. So it's like talking to a CEO of any company, and they're going to tell you all the great, hey, this is what we're doing. This is our revenue. This is our profit margin. Those are all great. Now, what actually went into those? And that's when you're going to get away from talking to the CEO and then start talking to some department heads, and then actually start talking to some people that are on the ground floor. So what I do, or what we do as a company, is everybody in the business has a KPI sheet of what they're going to be doing. In that KPI sheet, they might have 20 different KPIs, but only 5 of them get sent up to the next level. And then that level will take, let's just say they have 5 employees. They have the 5 most important KPIs per employee. Then they might have another 5 to 10 KPIs above that. And then they report up only 5 of their most important. So as we move up, it gets less granular, but it gets into building, like I said, some of the most important KPIs. And then when I look at those from the very high view, I'm just looking for trends. And then when I see an anomaly, that's when I start looking into the lesser ones. But if you're asking for specific KPIs, that is going to be a couple from each department. So like marketing, I am going to be looking at how many leads are we getting in, what's our conversion rate, and what's our costs on those types. If I'm looking at the front desk, it is going to be how often the phone is actually answered before the third ring, how many voicemails are left, how many voicemails are still there at the end of the day, how many appointments are going to be checked in, and how many appointments were canceled versus rescheduled. Finance is going to be what's my cash on hand, what is my 6-month outlook, what are our profit and losses and actual revenue and expenditure for that. So each department are going to have their important ones to go through.
And a lot of them are probably codependent on one another. The phones aren't going to be ringing unless marketing is bringing in leads, or they're front and center for people. So it sounds like you have a very systematic approach, and everyone knows in the company what their KPIs are, and they own it, because they know that that's going to be looked on and reported up. So that's really great, even down to the front desk staff, who again is your first customer service interaction with folks. So, and are there certain, from the technology standpoint, I guess, are there certain systems that you've become really reliant on, or are there things that, or new initiatives from the technology space that you guys are starting to look into, to help with operations?
Yeah. It really depends on the level of your business that you're at. So Excel is a great system. You can build so many different charts, KPI trackers, and all of those types of things. Now, that's only going to be as good as the person that you put in charge of building that Excel sheet. Mm-hmm. But some things that we use right now, like QuickBooks for accounting, is great. We use MindBody for all of our cash-based services because it comes with so much of a reporting backside to it that I can really get granular on anything I need to know. But then because we are a medical facility, we do have to have an EHR, or electronic health record. And that we use Athena, which has been great because it integrates. We are in the process of implementing NetSuite. We've put it on pause a little bit for right now, but NetSuite as an ERP. And the only reason that we're looking into something like that is because we do want to be at multiple locations in the next 5 years. And by multiple, I mean something in the 10 to 20 location range. And with that, you do need a more powerful system that's going to grab the information from all systems and be able to tell you that story. So I wouldn't go out and tell everybody, hey, go get NetSuite because you're a one location, 10-person shop. You definitely don't want to do that. You want to have tools that work well for you and the size that you're going to be at. MindBody is a great one that can work for just about any size of company. So I do like a program like that has reporting at its basis, because that's, again, very important in the jobs that we're all doing, is how fast can we get to that granular number and what is going to lead us to that.
And what would you say, obviously a lot of those things are separate but connected with one another. What do you see as some of the challenges with all the technology and really being able to tell that right story, to get the right KPIs, to really make sure you have the right inputs to make the decisions that you need to make as a CEO?
I think the most important thing to do when deciding that is know what your team looks like before you decide what systems to use, as well as have somebody that truly understands how the systems work together and what's needed and what's not. We've went through so many different systems and implementations that we've wasted so much time. A good example is we have MindBody. We used to use it for all of our tracking of leads and discussions we're having. But when we put somebody new in a different position, they're like, well, that's not good enough. We need to go out and get Salesforce. So we went out and got Salesforce and went and wasted $30,000 on implementation for a system that didn't really work, and not enough people in our company were using it for the level that we needed, but they all needed access to it. So it was a waste of money on that side. And the only reason we went for that is because we allowed some employees to convince other employees why it was needed. And then the decision was made because enough employees said that they needed it without truly understanding what the systems were capable of, as well as what were the capabilities and needs of our staff. So as a leader, you need to be able to stand and say, no, those systems are too big. We're not that large at this point. If you want to get that, you have to cross this threshold to actually say, yes, we are in need some of that, and really be able to put through that cost-based analysis of is it required or not. But in the end, it does come down to having somebody that truly understands all aspects of the company, especially if you do employ somebody like a director of IT or IT infrastructure or a CTO or anything like that. They have to go through the rigorous education to truly understand what the model is and why we're making the decisions that we are.
And do you at Rejuv Medical, do you guys have a chief technology officer?
We did until about a year and a half ago. Then we went with a third party just
Okay.
to kind of stay independent in that area. But yeah, it depends on the size of your company for those types of things.
Well, and going third party too sometimes also is a cost savings measure, because they can be really skilled in a certain area, and be an expert having so much experience, across many different industries or many different companies that they're working with. So yeah, sometimes you get more bang for your buck depending upon where you're at in your own business's growth. So transitioning a little bit, you had told me on a phone conversation that you had a funny story, and that the story was about potentially maybe some termination happening a few times, and potentially being able to come full circle from that. So wanted to see if you'd be comfortable sharing that story here with us today.
Yeah, I have no quarrels with it because I think it does illustrate a good story. So I've been here for 13 years. And I've been fired 4 times from here. Now, when I say fired, sometimes you can say demoted. It's kind of it depends on how you look at it. But I do remember in the first, I think I was hired in August or September of 2013. And by November of 2013, I came back with the CEO of a company from a conference and was told that both him and myself need to get our resumes, not our resumes, but our job descriptions ready, because we're going to have a meeting on Monday. Well, I walked into that meeting on that Monday and was let go. And I was let go because the company decided to bring in a consultant, and the consultant was going to take a role, and my boss was going to have to go back to his old position. So from CEO back to fitness manager, and that left me without a position. So as I walked in the parking lot, that CEO came out and told me, hey, I don't like this. I think there's plenty to do. Would you be willing to come back and work at the front desk? Like, sure. I believe in the company well enough. So I came back, and I went from running the fitness department to being the guy who checks you in at the morning.
Wow.
So I opened up every morning at 4:30. I ran the front desk during that time. And then at about 3 o'clock, somebody would come in and take the evening shift. And then I would go into the back room and start working on what my job was actually supposed to be when I got hired. So I'd stay there from about 4:30 in the morning until about 8, 9 o'clock at night. And then we moved into a new building. I got back promoted to that same job. And then about a year went by, and then I was asked to step down from that job and take a sales job. And that was because there were rumblings that some of our trainers might quit if I was going to keep that job. Now, that was because we were trying to change how we actually compensated them and build a replicable model and stuff like that. So I'm just like, yep, I think you guys are making the wrong decision, so I'll take that sales position. And I took the sales position. Did great at that, broke a bunch of records in our sales. But then the gentleman that took my job, which it got split up into 3 different people, but the person who took the fitness side said he couldn't do the job if I kept on working there, because he thought he wasn't getting all the buy-in from his people and stuff like that. So I was told to work at 2 other locations. So I was just like, all right, I think you guys are making a bad decision again. I'll take these. Within a month, I had closed down one of the other locations. That's a whole nother story on itself, but it was a location they should never have opened. But the other one was about 70 miles away, and I knew I wasn't going to make that drive every day, because that was about an hour and a half drive there, an hour and a half drive back, and in Minnesota, especially in the winter.
That's a lot.
Yeah. So I would actually go down on Mondays, and I slept on a clinic bed until Friday morning.
Wow.
Close that, and then come back here and work on the weekends at our main location. Did that for about a year and a half, came back here, then was starting to be promoted up. I went to integration director, then chief integration officer. And then we wanted to bring on a partner, which is a doctor. That doctor and I got along great for the first year until that doctor started to become partner, and they wanted to make changes that, especially in the fitness side, that I had just brought back to life. And it was difference on philosophy. She said, hey, I can't be partner if this guy's going to be here. So I got fired once more. That one was a funny one because our operations officer at that point actually just slid a piece of paper over and is like, hey, we got to terminate you from here. You can still work on this side of the company, but your compensation is going to be reduced by 60% and blah, blah, blah. And I just took the piece of paper, gave it back to him. It's like, yeah, that's not going to happen. So I just went back to do my job. He had really no rebuttal towards that one. So then I called up the owner, which had to have been on the discussion about that. But either way, that following Monday, we had a discussion, and it's like, his compensation will stay where it's at if nobody else is taking a decrease. So I worked on that other company, and within about 6 months, they're like, no, you got to come back into this company again. And then within a year from that, I was promoted to CEO. So a lot of it was just going, hey, I thought the owner was listening to the wrong people. And in reality, that was proven truth 4 different times. And now I'm at where I'm at, and we're aligned with where the mission's going to go, and we're going to get it there.
Well, if anybody deserves that CEO position, it is you. My gosh, Garrett, that is a crazy, wild story, but think of how much you learned at every level of the company then, that you were able to really have a strong knowledge base and empathy and true understanding of what all those different levels are, and what, the patients are faced with at each turn. So that's pretty impressive. And so you've been CEO for how long now?
I think I'm going on about 3 years now.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah, 3 years next month.
That's fantastic. So 3 years, you've obviously been there for 13, but as the last 3 years, I'm sure you've seen a lot of things and learned a lot of things along the way in this role. And based on what I can see and tell from research, you guys have been growing quite a bit. And I'm sure that probably has to do with this philosophy and the changes and, really the mission that you guys are focused on. Can you talk a little bit to some of the growth strategies that you have implemented or are up and coming that you are really focused on to help build the business and keep expanding?
Sure. The most important thing that grew us from the beginning is we embraced social media right away. I remember we used to be able to throw $100 into Facebook ads and have 200 leads for the fitness side. Not quite the story anymore, but it's still a great area. And for us, Facebook and Instagram is the number one way to get new clients. But the other most important one is testimonies and word of mouth. So we are very, very much believers of getting testimonies, because nobody's going to believe us just because we tell them. They need to hear stories, and they need to hear stories of people like them. So we incentivize any of our patients or clients to do a video testimony with us. And when they do a video testimony, it is really talking about a story. So we teach them the fairy tale method. What was life like once ago? So once upon a time. Then we do suddenly my life changed because I broke an ankle or a sprained ankle, stuff like that. Luckily, I heard about Rejuv Medical, and then what it actually looks like in the end. So that's their happily ever after. And then we ask them one more thing, and that is, what would you tell somebody that is hesitant about doing this? Or why were you hesitant? And then they tell us that. Employing that strategy has been tremendous for us because a couple different reasons. One, we use those on social media and we use them on radio and all those to tell people. But the other thing is when people call in and say, hey, this is my story, this is what I've been doing, we get to talk to them about what we did and be like, hey, by the way, I'm going to send you 3 different testimonials of people that I think are just like you. Whether they're in the same business that they were doing or the same injury, same location, age group, those types of things. And we want to get a couple different testimonials that we can put towards that person that vary a little bit, but are generally match them in a couple likelihoods. So using that has probably been our best growth strategy. And then really making sure that our employees like what we do by making sure that they take advantage of what we do. So getting them to take advantage of functional medicine, getting them to try regenerative medicine, the supplements, the gym, IVs, because once they can do it, they can start to talk to people that call in, or MA that is sitting there in an appointment after the doc left. They can say, yeah, I've done that same procedure. This is what it did for me. And now they get to talk to somebody who actually had the procedure and can ask questions. How was it? Did you hurt? What's the likelihood of it?
Yeah, they're speaking from their own personal experience. So that's so much more genuine than, well, what I've heard is this could happen or this could happen. Well, that's great. Obviously, you guys have really embraced the marketing side of the house, it sounds like. So is that something that your marketing team, puts together and coordinates for you guys on an ongoing basis?
Yeah. And when they're not available, the most powerful tool you have is that phone in your pocket. The doctor can just whip that up, like, how about we do it right here? And we typically reward them with like a gift card to our services or something like that, just to make them feel comfortable. It's never a must, but it's always an ask once people say the magic words of, I can't thank you enough. Well, actually,
there is something you could do for us.
yes.
That's fantastic. And it's become a part of your process. It's not just something that you do a few different times during the year to collect stories. It's embedded in your everyday, every patient type of experience. So it's ingrained in what everybody is asking for, which is great. So as we kind of wrap up, I'm just curious if on this journey, over these past 13 years and obviously your professional life even before that, what's one piece of advice that you wish that maybe you knew then, you know now about running an integrative private practice that you can maybe impart on some of our listeners?
Don't try to be too big too fast. Earn your stripes.
I like it. And it takes a while. It's not, it's, you can't go big or go home. Sometimes that doesn't work. You, like you said, fall flat on your face and then you have to, try something new. But there's a lot to be learned in that process as well too, right?
Absolutely. We have definitely elevated people too quickly in the past, and they have fallen on their face. And some of it was their fault because they tried to say, yep, I can take that job. And they went and found a way to convince the upper echelon to give them that job. And then when they failed, it was because they were hired on a belief that someone could do their job before they actually earned their stripes. So I recommend that to everybody is don't try to climb too fast, because the faster you climb, the quicker you can fall for sure. And that's the same thing for business owners. The example I use is you can get a lot of people that are going to tell you that you can build something very quickly. If you're going to build something very quickly, that is one brick on top of each other, and that tower can get tall fast. But the likelihood of it falling just by a gentle breeze is going to react in the whole thing coming down, not just the top brick coming down. But if you actually stand there and create your base of knowledge, create your base of education, of systems, all of that, that's when you start to build that pyramid. And as we all know, the pyramids can last thousands of years.
And very good point. I love that analogy. And yeah, you're building that strong foundation so you don't have to worry about getting so tall and falling over. You've got that sound base. One final question for you, because I'm just curious, if you could wave a magic wand, let's say, and instantly solve one challenge related to getting more of your ideal patients in the door, what challenge would you want to try and fix?
I would have to say the technology integration of people booking, getting all of their paperwork done with an integrated facility to where all their information from all of the other clinics that they've been to are at their hands. And we're close to that, as technology is close to that. Us as a company, we're trying to get into those right spaces. But I think that is probably the number one pain point, is getting all of that into the palm of their hand without flooding them with all the information that could be coming their way.
Got it. Yeah, technology is just, it's changing so fast too. So trying to keep up with it, as soon as you implement something, it's like, okay, sometimes you feel like then, okay, now this is already, we're behind again. We constantly have to keep up with it. Yeah, Garrett, I have learned so much from you, and I know that the audience is going to learn a ton from you as well too. Thank you for joining us on Growth Cultivated, a Blue Bonsai podcast. Until next time, keep cultivating smarter growth.